a shot at selling them something. And so let's find out the people who are trying to buy what you want. And then how do we do that? And that's what we talked about in the tools. And then today is, if you get all this working, what are the expected results? What can you expect is going to happen to the business? Now, Donna and I are not going to talk about this in terms of dollars, because I can't tell you what your dollars are because I don't know what they are right now. But the premise behind this is to achieve 25% sales growth every year. So basically every 4 years or a little bit less, you can double that. So with that intro, let me introduce my co-host and partner, not only for the series, but everything that we're doing here around our radio station, and our new one, which we're going to announce, is Donna Kundig. Hi, Donna. How you doing?
Hey, Bill. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. That's right, because we hadn't seen each other in a couple of weeks.
That's right. 2020. I'm hearing from a lot of people how excited they are for 2020. That things are just starting to click into place for people, business owners, growth. It's a very exciting time.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the economy, all the shows that I was doing in 2019, we talked about the fact that we're not going into recession. And I think right now is the odds of recession are so low that we're going to have a better year in 2020 than we had in 2019. I mean,
sure.
We had the best Christmas season, retail season, in the history of the country.
And it's a fresh start, the roaring 20s. It's a brand new decade full of possibilities. Very exciting times.
Yeah, and the only difference is we don't have silent Cal in the White House. Donald Trump is anything but silent Calvin Coolidge.
This is not a political show, Bill.
Oh, no, I'm not doing anything about politics, but just the roaring 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Warren Harding was the president at the beginning, but he died in office. And so the roaring 20s is predominantly this guy by the name of Calvin Coolidge.
Mm-hmm.
Cool guy, really cool
Mm-hmm.
guy. Read about the history of him. Kind of a laissez-faire, libertarian type of guy.
Mm-hmm.
He said, let business take care of business, and we'll take care of government. Got it. Okay, so let's talk about measuring results. And so let me start, let you start this.
Okay, great. We talked about this show being expected results. We've got kind of as you were talking about the shows leading up to here, we talked about tools, mindset, all these different things. And now if you put into play the things that we were talking about, what kind of results can you expect? And Bill, I was just having a conversation with my husband the other day, and he's reading one of the books I gave him called The Biology of Belief. And he said, we really live in a chaotic world. And I started to think about that. We really live in a chaotic world. And I didn't want to argue with him, but I did.
You're kidding.
Yeah, I know. But really, we live in such a predictable world if you think about it. The sun always rises in the east, sets in the west, right?
That's right.
You can take Google and you can punch in what date or what time will the sun rise in Richmond, Virginia on December 31st, 2025. And it'll tell you down to the minute if we live in a chaotic world, how could you do that? We know the seasons. We know that after spring comes summer, after summer comes fall, after fall. It's so predictable. Nature creates predictably. And so when we were talking about these laws of success, the same things happen with our businesses. When we can predict the expected results that we want when we use these laws, when we operate by these laws. Like another example, if I were holding a basketball and I decide to drop the ball, would you clap and get excited because the ball bounced? No, because you know gravity.
Right.
You know the law. You expect that. You wouldn't say, great job. No, not at all. And so, this is exactly what we're talking about in this show is these expected results. And there's a law called the law of compensation that says that every person has the opportunity to render useful products or services and to collect the sales in proportion to the value of that product or service. But the law can't promise something for nothing. So, I just read that there was the movie, The Secret, that was put out about 13 years ago. They're coming out with a part 2 to that. And they're not saying that The Secret was wrong, but they're saying there's more to it. Because a lot of people started thinking, oh, all I have to do is think.
That's right.
If I just think in the right way, all these results will happen.
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich. Of course, the book didn't cover that. It said that your thought process was part of it, like you and I talked about a couple of shows back.
Yeah. Yeah. You get the thoughts correct to begin with. And with Think and Grow Rich, they forget the grow part. They just think rich. The secret, law of attraction. I just think and it will come to me. But now they're saying that there's more to it. And so like this law of compensation, or as Napoleon Hill calls it, the law of economics, it says that you actually have to do specific work in accordance with the law. Law of gestation says that there is a growth period for every living thing, including your business. Your business
Right.
is living. And so if you apply all of the metrics that you learn from the data collected, I know you're a data guy.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing all that quote unquote so-called work, if you're doing all the work and it's still not working, well, then I have to ask what you're thinking like. Because you are your business and you are a direct influence into your business. And so they both have to work hand in hand for this all to work out.
Yeah, and it's that's why all small businesses use the term idiosyncratic, in that you look at a small business, and I'm talking about companies say under $1 million, probably 10 employees or less, is they all have the personal characteristics of the owner.
Yeah, that's right. You are your business.
Yeah, all your strengths are expressed in the business. All your weaknesses are expressed in the business.
They call it a glass ceiling. John Maxwell calls it the law of the lid. He says that he in his 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, the first law is the law of the lid. I was in the room with him and he said, you know why it's the first law? Because it's the most important. If the business owner is not raising their lid, the business is going to have a cap.
Yeah. And it struck me in that about 6 years ago, maybe 7, maybe 5, but it was a few years ago, we had done some research on fast growth companies who could grow fast and sustainably. And I don't mean sustainably in the environmental sense. I meant that you didn't kill your working capital. You had enough money left over that you put yourself out of business. And it was based upon work that we did, but I was really Daniel Tomlinson, who's now deceased, wrote a book called Zero to a Billion. And it was an excellent book because he had research in there that we didn't look at, because he was looking at companies that went from 100 million to $1 billion, really, where I was looking at companies that went from 0 to 10. And so there was some gap in there. And as I shared this information, I was doing a lot of public speaking events, and a lot of business owners turned off because they said, well, I don't want to be $1 billion.
Isn't that interesting?
And it couldn't, but you see, the thing was they couldn't generalize. It's because I didn't give them the precise number that was in their head. Like, you want to grow your company into 10 million. Okay. Yeah. I talk about $1 billion, you turn me off because it's like, oh, I can't be that. And it's like, well, if you want to be, if these principles work to go to $1 billion, what do you think they mean if you want to go to 10 million?
Right.
Or 5 million, or
same.
even 1 million. And that's the issue. It's a law.
Yes.
These are laws of business. It is true. In fact, we called it the science of growth because they're immutable. Like you had asked me quite a few shows back when we were doing a different show, whether or not there was a predictability about how companies mature.
Right.
And I said there absolutely is. There's a bandwidth. You can't say exactly you're going to last 3 months, 2 days, and 5 hours. But you can basically say, if you're here, this is your revenue stream. You've got 2 to 4 months to get your act together. Otherwise, you're going to run out of money. And it's just pretty simple mathematics.
Well, and that relationship with money really is so important, because this book, Think and Grow Rich, I know a lot of business owners that won't even read it because of that word rich. There's such this stigma, this problem with money, with rich, with what rich, who bashing the rich people. We've talked about that before, and it's money is just a currency. It's just paper. It's coin. It's metal. It could be clams. It just doesn't matter. And that's the first thing that really needs to get solid for the business owner, is to get their head around the idea of growing a successful business, not just working hard. So many business owners, I work with coaches, I work with the solopreneurs, and they say, well, I don't care I'm not doing it for the money. I'm just doing it because I have a passion. I want to help people. You know what?
And I think that's all a lie. I think that we've been so conditioned that I can't say, yeah, I want to make a lot of money because it sounds so inappropriate in the current environment we're in.
It sure does. But also, according to the laws, Bill, you have to build a business ethically in order for the laws to work for you. Now, you can say, well, I can watch the news and see the drug cartels, and they're making a lot of money, but they don't keep it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's taken away from them. They get put in prison. Bad things happen. Bad things happen to bad people.
They are lucky if they get put in prison. Most of them wind up, dead.
True. So when we talk about Think and Grow Rich, or these laws of compensation, laws of economics, however you want to put them, the first thing that the business owner has to do is get their head around, it's okay for me to make money. It's okay for me to talk about money. It's okay for me to grow myself, to grow my business. And not only is it okay, it's necessary.
It absolutely is, because, and again, if you think about all the sacrifices that running a business require, that there has to be some compensation for all of the missed events that you don't get to go to, all the extra hours. You're up at 4:00 in the morning. I mean, if that's not a good deal to the business owner, you can't be doing that for altruistic reasons. And so, I mean, people claim you can. I'm not in that world.
But so many good people and so many good businesses go out of business because they don't have cash flow.
That's right. And then what's the damage to that? Or the employees you got to lay off, all the debts that you've incurred that you can't pay. And how about what's the damage to all your suppliers?
Yeah, I just heard, Bill, in Virginia, they're talking about raising the minimum wage.
Right.
And there was a couple of one business owner I heard say, he's like, well, great. I hear that you want to help out the employees. I want to help the employees too. If you raise the minimum wage, I'm going to have to reduce my number of employees. So now what are you doing? You're putting more people out of work. And I'm thinking, but if you would just do more to raise your income, you could pay everybody more and grow your business.
Right. Well, that's the only option you have is you have two options if they raise the minimum wage. One is you got to reduce your labor hours, because I don't know any business out there that does not have a firm metric that your labor can only be X percentage of your revenue. And I've worked a lot in manufacturing, and we always operate on the rule of thirds. Gross margin third, material a third, labor a third.
Mm-hmm.
And so your options are, one, reduce labor, or two, increase revenue to pay for the more expensive employees.
Yeah, but it was just interesting to me because Bill, I've been studying these laws, the mind. I've told you for 30 years, the mind just fascinates me. And to think that, and I feel the struggle. I understand it. Intellectually, I understand it. My heart, I feel the business owner that said that, that he doesn't want to lay people off. But I'm thinking, why are you throwing in the towel? Why are you giving up so fast? Why aren't you saying, let's just come together and see what we can do to make this work good for everybody?
Well, what happens is that you've tried a lot of stuff, and then you get kind of a monofocused and going, well, that won't work. And now suddenly you're putting more on my back, which I really don't need right now. So, there's a lot of reasons for it. But one of the things that I like about where you went with the law of compensation is, and it's the principle of capitalism, is that you have no right to any money or value if you don't produce any. The fundamental proposition here is that you do something of value of which people are willing to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do, you will be successful. Now you have to build an infrastructure and a system that will be able to scale that, because you can do that on your own, and you're just a solopreneur. You're an independent contractor. But if you want to really grow the business, then you have to build the infrastructure. Otherwise, you can't get that done.
Yeah, and I think as unique as you can be about that, Seth Godin talks about be the purple cow. So I'm using this poor business owner. I feel bad for him. I do. So don't think I'm a cold, heartless person. But maybe it's time to change up things a little bit. The law of compensation says not only your value into the world, but also the ability to replace you. So if you look, act, and smell just like the business owner next to you, just like the business owner next to you, you're going to be competing for consumers' dollars. But when you become the purple cow, you really stand out. You're doing something different, like Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
2 days to your door, they're doing something different. Then you stand out. The money comes, and the rest of the laws come into play.
Okay, you are listening to WNTW 92.7 FM, 820 AM from Chester, Virginia. We are live on Thursday, and if it's Saturday or Sunday, which is when you're hearing this, this is pre-recorded. The show is Sales 2020, and the whole focus is on generating revenue for independent contractors, entrepreneurs, and business owners. And what we're doing right now is we're talking about sales. We're pulling together the expected results. So the premise behind this is that if you produce value, you'll get value. And until you do, then you're not going to get there. But one of the challenges that we have in sales is that a lot of people look at sales as a negative thing. And we're back to mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And that sales is not a negative thing. If you're selling something to somebody that they don't need and can't afford, sales is negative. And that's what with the connotation we have. But our view of sales here is that you're solving problems.
We're always selling. Sales is just influence.
That's right. And so what you're saying is that I have something that's going to solve your problem. And the idea behind this is that there are people out there who want what you have. They just don't know you exist.
Right.
And I'm going to beat on this and beat on this and beat on this. And if this turns you off, then be turned off. But if you think that you can sell successfully and grow a company without doing any type of marketing and advertising, then I recommend you write a book about how you did it, because you're going to be a multimillionaire
Mm-hmm.
because nobody's done it.
Well, and if you didn't have to do it, you'd already have the results you want. If you didn't have to change, you'd already have it.
That's right. And so instead of making the whole world around a cold call and you trying to find people who want to buy what you've got by going door to door, and you say, well, we got pretty good growth with word of mouth, you're never going to get more than 5, 6. You're never going to get double-digit growth from word of mouth, because you're just not going to have it. You're too small to have that many customers. If you're a billion-dollar firm,
Mm-hmm.
you get enough customers, you can grow from word of mouth. But guess what? Then you have a marketing budget, and you don't need to do that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say, all right, let's pull the first 4 shows together, and let's talk about how I would measure this. And it's based upon the premise that you have to provide value to get value. But we're going to have you 9 ways to measure the results. And I can't give you a dollar figure, except our target is increase your sales by 25% per year. So over 4 years, you double in revenue. In the process, bring in better margin customers. So let's just say that you bring in customers that increase your margin by just 10%. So in 4 years, you've doubled sales, but now you've increased the margins that you're getting. Basically, what's left over after you pay for material, you pay for employees, you pay for sales, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, but Bill, that's a great hypothesis, but it's not, is it? Tell me that. How do you get those numbers?
Well, you get those numbers by doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done it. I've gone from zero.
Exactly.
I've gone from 0 to 10 million in 3 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't want to. I'm not sure physically I could do it again. Intellectually, I could, because it was a gas, but it was a real pounder. But you can do it if you do the right things. And what we want to do now is we're going to cover the 9 things that, if you measure these, as we take all of the next shows coming up, here's how you're going to be able to increase your sales revenue and your margins. I'm going to go through the 9 quickly, and then Donna and I are going to go slow through them and explain them. So the first one is brand penetration, and that's nothing more than when you've identified who the perfect customer is or your audience, what percentage of them you actually exist, okay? And you are a buying option. And we're going to come back to that. Number 2 is congruence, brand congruence. In other words, you have this image that you want to create in the marketplace. Well, what do they think of you?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, when they may have done business with you, they may have seen your advertisements, they've been to your website, you've been trying to formulate one opinion. What's the opinion they really have? And the more incongruent it is, the worse it is. We're going to come back to that. Number 3, and it just kind of tags along with it, is what we call competitive intelligence. In other words, who are your 3 or 4 or 5 major competitors? Take the top 3. What are the positive and negatives about their brand image? Why? Because if you're going to sell against them, you don't want to go up against their positives. You want to go up against their negatives.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to put together any type of marketing campaign, such as you use social media, this is exactly where you want to go with them. Number 4 is, what percentage increase of qualified leads do you now have in your sales funnel? So now the first 3 are looking at brand. How are you known? And what do you have to change? What do you have to do to change how you're known in the market? And so you're a part of the customer's buying decision. The 4th one is, given all this stuff, what type of increase in numbers do you have qualified leads? And what I mean, we got a sales funnel. Everybody's got a sales funnel, whether you identify one or not. And that's basically, you got somebody who raised their hand in some way and said, I'm interested. How do you work them through the other end of this funnel until you have a closed deal? Well, one of the things that marketing needs to do for you is increase the number of qualified leads at the beginning of the funnel. So that's a metric. How much, if you did this marketing campaign, how many more qualified leads do you have than you used to have? Number 5, and that is what percentage, number 5 is how long has it taken to close those? And so if you've got a better margin customer, then more than likely you're going to close them quicker and it's going to reduce your cost of sales. If you said, where am I going to get my marketing dollars from? I'm going to get my marketing dollars from reducing the cost of sales. So if I've got more and better people coming into the funnel and I'm closing them faster, in other words, let's say you used to have a 60-day cycle from the first time you touch base with them until you close the deal and get the check. Well, how do I turn that into 30 days? Because if I turn it into 30 days, maybe I'm not going to halve the cost of sales, but I'm going to get maybe 40% reduction.
Sure.
That's a better margin account. And then the last one there is that how do I know that that I'm not buying sales? And this is a key one, because a lot of times with salespeople, what they'll do is they'll discount. So I want to track let's say I sell 10 things. I want to track the average sale price on all 10 of those to find out, am I actually buying sales?
Mm-hmm.
And so if I do all that, then what I have is I have basically a pretty good handle on how well I'm perceived in the market. I may make it easier or harder for myself to sell and the company to sell. Number 2 is, what am I doing in marketing? In other words, do I have the right people raising their hands? So for example, lifetime value, we're going to talk about that. What's the lifetime value of customers? We're going to talk about what is the cost of acquisition? What does it cost me to get them? Because our case that Donna and I are going to make is that if you use some sort of intelligent marketing and advertising, it's going to be cheaper to get better accounts.
Sure.
Than this horsepower of throwing bodies at it, and it's all going to be cold calling. And then we got the whole thing about, okay, what you probably are measuring, one of the few things that most businesses measure, how many leads do we have? How long does it take to close them? And then when I look at the average price of the close, did we buy that with discounting, or are those legitimate high margin accounts?
So you're talking about strategery.
So strategery. I thought we were going to do politics. I thought we were done with politics.
Sorry.
All right. So I can't even do that word. Yeah. George W. Bush. I'm sorry. Sorry, President Bush, on that. All right. So what we're going to do when we come back from break is that we're going to take, Donna and I are going to take those 9 and we're going to break them down and talk about them in a little bit more detail. But if you measure, see, here's the beauty of this, to close with. If you measure this stuff, it's going to force you to do it. That is one of the most bizarre things in business is if you don't measure it, you don't do it because you can't manage it.
What you focus on, you get. If you focus on, like you say, you'll get what you focus on.
So if you put these 9 things in place, or you add in what you don't have from the list that we have, then that by itself will generate more sales. So with that, you listen to WNTW 92.7 FM, 820 AM. The show is Sales 2020. Donna Kunde and I am William Eastman. I am the co-host for today's show, and we'll be back in a few. And we're back. This is WNTW 92.7 FM, 820 AM. It is Saturday or Sunday, and it's 10 to 11. And the reason we're laughing because it's Thursday here. But we're doing this as a recorded show. We'll be monitoring our email. So if you've got any questions, we'll give you an immediate answer. It's info at 2020sales.solutions. 2020sales.solutions. Now, if you want to follow along with the presentation, our website is just kind of reversal of that. And, oh, no, it's not. It's
2020sales.solutions.
2020sales.solutions. When you get there, go to show notes, and you'll see that this is show 5 in the series, and it's around what results can you expect from doing this? Because from this point on, we're going to be talking nothing but sales technique.
Yeah, and I just got to interject real quick there, Bill. It's not guaranteed. We're not saying these are the results that are guaranteed. We're saying this is what you can expect when you do the right work and when you think in the ways to utilize the laws. There's a little bit of a difference there.
Yeah, well, you never can guarantee anything other than I can guarantee that if you don't do some of these things, you will not be generating
there's
sales.
that.
I can do that because if you can do anti the 9 we give you, and you can grow your company in sales, write a book like we said before.
Yeah, but get it all in alignment, and it's guaranteed growth. Absolutely.
Okay, so let's take the first one, and we broke this down into 3 areas. We got 3 conversations about brand, 3 metrics around brand.
Okay.
Which is your image you're projecting in the marketplace. We've got 3 on marketing, which is letting people know who you are in very, very specific terms, like you're going to have a sale on a particular item.
Makes sense.
And then the last 3 is how do I manage the sales funnel to turn opportunity into dollars? Okay, so first of the 3 is brand penetration. Giving you a perfect type of customer, how many know your business exists, and that they consider you a buying option.
I think that noise is so big out there that there's so many businesses that don't even get heard.
Yeah, I agree.
That, they really need to work on getting, because that's the first step, isn't it?
It really is. And if you haven't sat down and you haven't figured out your brand yet, that's a recommendation I would make. You don't have to hold everything else up, but if you have not said, well, here's who we are, and we have a tool if you want. Info at
2020 sales
2020 sales solutions .solutions. Send me an email and I'll send you, because on branding there are 3 dimensions of branding. You got a branding around the company, which is kind of the overall umbrella, and what you're looking to do is you're looking to make an emotional contact with people.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is the branding of the particular products and services that you're trying to feature. And typically if you're doing a marketing campaign, you're not doing around all of them. So you're picking out 1, maybe 2 at most, but our recommendation is pick 1 and run with it. And so what you're looking here, the connection you want to make is a rational one. They have a need. They have a problem they need solved. How do you feature this product or service so it says to them, this will fix the problem? And then number 3 is because of the small size of the business and the fact that we're trying to minimize the risk that people have to take with buying from a small company, is that you want to brand the owner or any of the thought leaders inside the firm, because you want to be able to make a personal connection to where people feel safe buying from you.
Yeah, and they buy on emotion. You got to connect them to your heart.
Why take a risk with you when I can go with somebody bigger, and probably somebody I've done business with in the past? And even though I wasn't necessarily excited about them, most people will take the devil that they know over the devil they don't know.
Yeah, I tend to buy for ease of use. Don't make it hard for me to give you my money, and I'll buy on emotion if you stand for something that I believe in, and I want to support you on that.
So now there's 2 tools we have. So info at 2020sales.solutions, info at 2020sales.solutions. One is a branded market study, and how do you do this in a way where you can find out, and not only will it answer this question, it'll answer the next 2 on branding. And what you're looking to do is to find out from not just your customers, but prospective customers you'd like to have. When I say perfect customer, what I mean is a perfect customer is somebody who, number 1, is looking to buy what you sell. Number 2 is that they're going to be making a decision fairly soon within your sales cycle. So if your sales cycle is 60 days, they're going to be making a decision in 60 days. If your sales cycle is a week, then maybe you're thinking like a week. And then number three is they don't put any additional burden on your system. In other words, whatever you're going to sell them, you just sell it to them. You don't have to do anything special. You don't have to rework it. You don't have to do any of that other stuff, because two things happen. One, it reduces your margin on that particular item. And number two is you raise the chance for mistakes because it's not what you do.
Sure. And we had the conversation just earlier today too, Bill, that there's a lot of service industry people who charge a lower amount to keep a clientele level that they have when they could be raising their prices. But there's that fear of letting go of what I know versus what I could have.
Yeah, and that gets into the whole strategy area. But I would say to you, what's your brand say? Does your brand say that you are the low price offer? I mean, I'm not saying that's the wrong offer.
Walmart's doing great with that.
Right, but the issue is that if you're going to be the lowest price out there, then you're going to have to make money on volume, and if you're small, it is challenging to make money on volume. Well, we have a branded market study and a methodology to question prospective customers to where you can get a handle on where they see you. Now, more than likely what's going to happen, let's say you hire us to do this, and I'm not lobbying, but I'm going to use an example because I have done this. And we call 50 customers that are prospects that you'd like to have. It could be that none of them have ever heard of you. Okay?
Probably pretty high.
Pretty high. Let's say 5 heard of you.
Okay.
All right. So now what happens now is we go, okay, what are the 3 things that come to mind, positive things come to mind when we think about this company? Boom, boom, boom. Then you say, what's the 3 negative things that come to mind? Boom, boom, boom. And you get those. And so that takes us to the next one. And that is on brand congruence in terms of when you look at the positive and negatives, how does that fit the image you're trying to project? My guess is if you haven't done a lot of work here, it may not be close.
And that's a hard thing for a lot of business owners, especially to do because they are their brand.
Yes.
Right. And so it's not a personal attack. You got to know it's just data.
Yeah.
You need the data. You need to know what is good. You need to know what is not good in order to grow. But there's a lot of business owners that won't do that study because they're afraid of the results.
Yeah. Or you think about how that happens, though, is that somebody comes to your business and you had a bad day, or they were just not a really good person, and they hammer you on a Yelp comment. Mm-hmm. Now everybody reads that, and what's their impression of your business? It is that. And so what I need to do is I need to find out what people think. Number one is I need to know how many people even heard of me. Mm-hmm. Then number 2 is what do they think of me? Now, the other part of this is that when we go to number 3 on competitive intelligence, now I know what I have to, if I'm going to market, I know, number 1, what positives I should be emphasizing in my marketing and advertising. Number 2, in a subtle way, how do I overcome the negatives? How do I address those without making it obvious that I'm doing that? Now, let's put that aside because now the fun starts. You want to take business away from your number 1 competitor. What do you now know? Because in this brand study, what happens is that you ask about, have them rank order the top 5 companies in the industry. So let's say you don't get mentioned. So I'll put that aside. They mentioned 5 companies. You're not one of them. You're going to ask the same question. What are the top 3 things, positive things you think about when you hear that name? What comes to mind? What's the 3 negatives? Well, you've now just been told how to compete. Because if you think about your marketing campaigns, you're trying to do 3 things. Number 1, you're trying to suppress people buying from the competition. Now, you got to be careful because you can't say they're a bunch of idiots or a bunch of dolts, or, you can't attack them directly. I mean, you could if you really want to and perhaps not get sued, but that doesn't help you with the customer. What you want to do in a subtle way is address what's wrong with them. You don't mention by name, but you just basically say, we don't do this, and we don't do this, and we don't do this. The customer knows what you're saying.
And you don't have to say we don't do this. You can form that in a positive to say, if you know the negative that they don't like, turn that around into a positive and preach that from the mountaintops. That this is what we do. This is our brand. This is why you love us, why you need to come to us. People will know.
So number 1, with your marketing, you want to suppress people for people buying from the competition. Then you have people that are neutral, who are in the buying decision process, and you want to influence them positively, persuade them that you're the right choice. How do I do that? Well, that's part of the messaging I'm going to put in there. But on the third one, if you've been in business for a while, you've got people who have positive stories about you, and you've got a base of customers. So how do I reinforce that they were smart in buying from me? So now, is that one campaign or two campaigns or three campaigns? It could be one or two or three. But if you think about your marketing campaign, you're either suppressing your the customers from buying from your competitors, you're trying to influence the people that are on the fence, or number three, you're trying to reinforce the people that buy from you that it's the most brilliant thing they've ever done in their lives.
Yeah, and when you stroke their ego, they're going to love that.
And so if you want to get a hold of our brand and marketing study and that methodology, it's all phone based. I would recommend you have a third party do it, or get somebody, a friend, who, pay them $100 and have them make the phone calls. You don't want to do it yourself. You want, you want somebody that the person that you're calling is perceived as neutral and not you. If you're calling from your company, you're not going to tell you the truth. You need to have the absolute truth as the customer sees it. Doesn't mean it's the truth, but it means that that's what they think. But if you want info at 2020sales.solutions, that's info at 2020sales.solutions. And Don and I will send that to you. And if you want a little help on how to make it work, let me know. The second one we have is the perfect customer profile, which is how do I put together the profile and the buying persona of the perfect customer for me? And I've already talked about it. Quick buy, they're going to buy within your sales cycle. They have the financial wherewithal to afford what you offer. And then number three is that they'll fit right in. You don't have to do anything special for them, so you don't have to hit your margins. And so if you want either one of those, again, info at 2020sales.solutions. That's info at 2020sales.solutions. We'll send it to you. Okay. And you're listening to WNTW, 92.7 FM, 820 AM, and out of Chester, Virginia. Today is Saturday or Sunday, and we're in the studio, Don and I, on a Thursday. Okay. We've taken care of the first three: brand penetration, brand congruence, and competitive intelligence. Those three are now taken care of. You now have all the data you need to be incredibly successful. Now, how do we get our message out? So the next three is around that messaging. And so how many qualified leads do we have in the sales funnel? Now, that is an issue of your campaigns. We talked about campaigns last week. And we said one of the tools that we're going to talk about here is that you make a decision on what media channels you're going to use. And media channels are both the traditional, it could be flyers on windshields, it could be a billboard, postcard, ad in a newspaper, magazine, as well as digital, which usually means website, social media. But as you're doing that, you've taken this information we've talked about and you're applying it. How do I determine whether it's working? And so the way to break down your marketing spend is to break it into two piles. One you do on faith and one you hold accountable for results. The one you put on faith is, how do I change my brand image, or how do I reinforce it? And there's really no way to measure it other than doing this market study every year or every half year to see how much penetration are we getting. Have we changed positively how they see us as opposed to how we want to be seen? How are we doing against the competition? If they rank ordered us, and on the original of the 5 companies we were last, now are we 3? But there's no real way to extract a dollar from that. That's simply data to have. So that half of that, the money, and I'll just assume right now I'm talking 50%, that's just a given. The other 50% gets into number 4 here, and that is, how many qualified leads has this brought to my sales force? And if my sales force is me, then how many has it brought to me? Mm-hmm. So that's what I want to be looking at, and that is a huge metric because sales is all numbers, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because and
mindset.
Well, let me stay on the number side. Is that if you've been in business for a while, you know your sales cycle is 60 days.
Sure.
And you know that you're basically closing 10% of the stuff in the funnel.
It's so predictable.
Right. So now what you want to do is you say, okay, 10% is an unacceptable number. Mm-hmm. Okay, because the only
way, average.
Right. And the only way to fix it is to get more people in the beginning of the funnel.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with that. But if they're better accounts, then you can measure that in the second way. But in the first way is I want to go, all right, did this marketing campaign, how many new leads did it bring in beyond what we traditionally do? And I want to look for the increase, because one of the things you can do with that is that you could say, okay, if let's say you got 100 new leads from a Facebook campaign and you spend $100, that's $1 lead.
Right.
I don't know any business owner that would say no if you said, I'll give you 100 new leads for $100.
That'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, unless they're crap leads. I'm talking about quality leads.
Sure.
And so this whole price of acquisition, what does it cost you to bring people on, is a critical number to know. And here's the first place I'm going to test it. And so how many people has this campaign brought in to me, and what's the cost for each one of those? Okay, that's one way of looking at it. Let's put that aside. Number 5 is number 5. Number 8 here is, how long does it take me to close those? Okay, so if I because the cost of sales goes up, the longer it takes, the more times you got to touch them,
Mm-hmm.
the longer it takes. So if I can close them faster, one, I get money quicker.
Sure.
And then number 2 is that the cost of sales goes down. So if I could spend, if somebody said, if you spent an extra $10 to take out a week in your sales cycle, would you do it? I know most business owners would easily part with $100 to say, if you could take a week out of my sales cycle, that's worth $100, because it costs me more than $100
Sure. Yep. Yep.
to get that done.
Absolutely.
And so that's the second metric that I'm going to look at here, is how long does it take me to collapse down those individuals? And then finally, I'm looking at and I'm tracking the average sales price. And so when now, if I'm the only sales guy, I kind of know what I'm doing. But one of the mistakes that we make in selling is that we pay salespeople on top line. In other words, they get paid on revenue brought in. And so if they discount this to get the deal,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they lose a couple dollars, but they don't lose that much. Who loses most of the money?
The business owner.
You do.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, if you paid them on bottom line, I'm not advocating you do that, because sales compensation is a different conversation for a different show, which we will cover in this season. But I would say in an established business, and I've had a couple of these, is that we paid on bottom line, because then the salespeople were not incentivized to reduce the price in order to sell it, because if they're being paid on top line, they don't care whether that business has any margin, because their commission is going to be paid on what they brought in.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing I experienced here at the radio station. And that's one of the problems with radio. Radio will a lot of times sell airtime for any price just to get money. And then the reality is that when you put in all the labor costs and everything involved, you probably should be writing a check to the customer who you're now doing advertising with or running a show with. And so the challenge you got is you got to track what you're charging for each one of those items. So if you have 5 products you sell or 5 services, what's the average price that you sell each one of those at? And you get a good sense for, are we keeping integrity on our price and getting good margins, or are we buying sales? And go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to get it straight in my head. Basically, we want to know how are we being seen? How is the client finding us? How is the customer finding us? Once they find us, how long does it take to convert them into a customer, and how much does that cost us to do that? Right? Is that basically what we're saying?
That's basically it. Then you add to it, what's the lifetime value of that customer? So if this is the type of sale where repeat purchases happen all the time, and they happen frequently, then hey, this customer may be worth this sale may only be $1,000,
mm-hmm.
but
lifetime,
the customer could be a $25,000 customer.
Sure, over time. Mm-hmm.
We were working with food stores up in New England, and they've been bought out, but Stop and Shop stores up in New England area, Boston, Connecticut, part of New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, etc. And with these characters is that they were really having some issues with customer service. And what we did is we put a lifetime value on a customer. They gave me the number. I didn't need to compute it. And they said each customer is worth about $7,000. Well, all we had to do is train the employees that when somebody walked in the door, here's what I wanted you to see on their head, 7K with a dollar sign.
Mm-hmm.
And now suddenly the reaction, the relationship kind of changes.
A
because
mindset shifted, didn't it?
That's right, because how they thought about those customers now is radically different.
Yes.
And so you want to know what the lifetime value is, and that really becomes important when you're trying to define who is the perfect customer, because it could be that you sell something that is only a single purchase, and they're not going to repeat buy. And I could see with people that are selling something in house remodeling,
Yeah.
a certain element like windows.
Or cars. You don't buy a car. Most people don't buy a car every month, every year.
But a lot of car dealerships actually do the calculation on lifetime value because, on
Maintenance.
average,
Do they do maintenance?
well, you got the service area. I'm just thinking that on average, people get rid of their cars every 3.5 to 4 years, used to be. And so I don't want that money going to somebody else. Now, of course, what's different today, as a guy who understands selling cars pretty well, is there's no money to be made on selling new cars. And so the money is to be made in service and selling used cars, because the customer already knows the margin on the new car. So it's hard to charge more than manufacturer's suggested retail price on an automobile, because the customer already knows what that is and already knows in there how much flexibility you have. The only thing they don't know is what rebate you're getting back from the factory.
So isn't that a good point? I don't know if we're going to talk about that on the show, but the customer, the buyer, has knowledge as they come in to negotiate larger ticket items like that.
That's right. And what we're doing is we're dealing in a world with more perfect information.
Mm-hmm.
So it's getting more and more difficult to charge more than the value you provide.
Love compensation.
Yeah. And so automobiles, selling new cars is a huge challenge, because you basically, most dealers make about $100 to $200 on a new car sold, and then they're getting a rebate from the manufacturer based upon inventory levels. So maybe you figure a new car, you're making $300, maybe $400. Selling a used car, on the other hand, Blue Book has a range.
Sure.
And so suddenly you have lots of maneuvering room here on what you charge.
Subjective.
But to get back to your point is that, almost every industry, there's a potential for a repeat buy. And if there is, then you need to compute that lifetime value, because though we're not talking about customer service in here, actually customer service is nothing more than upselling. Because
that's not really customer service. The repeat buyer, that's part of the sales cycle. And I know of a lot of business owners that continue to look for new business, and they overlook the old one. I don't know. It's like a phenomenon. Have you experienced that?
Absolutely. In fact, when I was doing nothing but customer service training for the large corporations, it was different. But for the small companies, this is everything we would preach about. It is, if you provide great service, now you have the opportunity to upsell these accounts at about 20% of what it costs to get a new one.
It almost feels like the mindset of the business owner feels bad that they made the sale. I get that from some of them.
Or they didn't do a good job of
something.
selling, and now they're kind of like, I don't know if I want to go ask them. They may be unhappy with me.
Yeah.
And, and if they are, go after them anyway, because then at least you'll go, I just lost a big sale because we didn't do X right.
Or
maybe
learn.
I'll fix it.
Yeah,
Maybe
learn
I'll
for the
fix it.
next time. Exactly.
But every place I've worked in large corporations that customer service was separate from sales, I put it back in the sales department. Because to me, customer service is just upselling. It's selling to existing accounts, and service is what allows you to sell to existing accounts if you don't have any service. But we left it off of this because I want to keep this pretty clean. So I think that kind of covers the list there. I think we got brand penetration, congruence, competitive intelligence, increase of qualified leads in the funnel, lifetime value of customers, what is the cost to acquire new accounts, what is the percentage of qualified leads to close sales, how long did it take to close sales, and what was the average sale price. You measure those 9 things. And by the way, that's on our website. Okay, so go to 2020sales.solutions. I've got to close my eyes to memorize this because it's a new website. And I'm caught up in the old one because I want to say what the old website is. But if you go there and you go to show notes and you go to show 5, expected results, what you'll find is we've got all those on there. And my guess is if you're reasonably successful as a business owner, you're doing some of these. And if you're not successful,
you have to be.
Yeah. Well, or them. You can kind of gut them out and, because you're doing the sales, you're doing everything, you have a sense for it. I would recommend you start tracking these in some form a visible way, so that if nothing else, if there's nobody but you, you're looking at them every day.
Mhm.
But if you got people around you, I want people knowing how we're performing as a company in terms of sales. I don't want a company where people are guessing whether or not we're making money, because that leads to kind of disembodied performance. If you're not contributing to the profitability and growth of the company, what are you doing here?
It doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah, I mean, even if I write you a pretty tight job description, if you're not contributing to the growth of the company and just doing the tasks, you're wasting my time.
Mhm.
And I'm wasting your time. You need to be someplace where you can contribute to the company and not just be a automatic, robot just doing stuff. So talk about next week, Donna.
Next week, we're going to talk about sales conversations, what to say and how to say it. Because, of course, there's always two sides to every coin. There's the he said, she said. So we're going to talk about the actual sales conversations that can be had and should be had. And then there's a way to say it. So when we talk about, I've talked about neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. There's a way that we can formulate the sentences. They're called tonalities, in order to make the sales a little bit more consistent and in your favor. So sales conversations, what to say and how to say it.
Okay. And I would heartily recommend that when you go to the website, you definitely got to go to the website, because that's where all the materials are. 2020sales.solutions, 2020sales.solutions.
Solutions, not .com, not .com.
That's
Solutions.
right. I would recommend go to the revenue survey. And what I would like to do is I'd like to find out, what are you currently doing? Because one of the things we're going to do with the show is we're going to collect data, and then we're going to give it back to you. And we also use the data to improve the show. What we talked about last week with the tools, well, we feel somewhat obligated to do what we talk about. But if you go there, you'll see a survey, and it's called Generating Sales or Wasting Money. And what we'd like to do is collect data that you have right now on what you're currently doing. So go to our website, and that's 2020sales.solutions. Go to the revenue survey, click that, and then it'll take you to a Google form, and there's just a couple questions. You have to give us an email address and a cell phone and zip code. Mm-hmm. That's all. That helps me. How do I get back to you? And then with the zip code, it tells me where you're at, because we are also doing this on internet radio.
It's a good audit for you as the business owner to know where you've been spending your money. You know, it's not just for us. This is for you, the business owner.
And also that'll help you if there's something here that's working and that you're not doing it, we can say, well, hey, this is what your peers are doing.
How many times do people say, I used to do that, why am I not doing that anymore?
Right. So here's what you need to do the feedback survey. You go to the website, 2020sales.solutions. That's 2020sales.solutions, SOLUTIONS. When you get there, you'll see at the navigation bar across the top, you'll see revenue survey. Click that, and this survey shouldn't take you more than about 5 minutes to complete. And if you do that, next week's show, we're going to report back on the data, and we're going to have another survey up there for you, because one of the things we are going to do, as our motto for our previous shows was solutions on demand, is that what we're going to do is collect data, go, what do you want to talk about in sales? And then we're going to cover those topics. Or we will address why we're not taking care of those topics. But if you say you want it, more than likely Donna and I have done it.
Yes. And we want to hear from you. This isn't just about us. This isn't about us coming on the air talking about what's important to us. This is what's important to you. So let's hear from you. Okay.
So with that, for Donna Kunde and William Eastman here at 2020 Sales and our new show and our website, which is 2020 Sales Solutions. Have a great weekend, and we will catch you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.